Welcome to Your Wise Self with Sarah, the podcast that invites you to embark on a journey of self-discovery, growth, and transformation. Thank you for joining me, Sarah, as I explore the profound wisdom within each of us, waiting to be uncovered and embraced. Today's topic is From Fear to Freedom, Unlock Your Real Wealth with Julie Murphy. I'm so pleased to introduce you to Julie. She has transformed lives by coaching people on how to experience real wealth and fulfillment, beginning with healing their relationship with money and with themselves. For over 25 years, she has led her financial services and wealth management firm, JMC Wealth, based in Chicago, Illinois. Like many, she was once influenced by deep-rooted family beliefs about financial struggle. But once she realized she no longer had to live under the shadow of those old childhood money beliefs, she designed a life plan of her own, rooted in sound investment strategies and supported by proven emotional and mental tools and techniques, supporting other women who are building a career or business, raising a family, or recovering from divorce and seeking love again. She holds professional designations as a CLU, CHFC, and CFP, and is an independent certified financial planner. She's the proud mother of 4 beautiful children and the second oldest daughter in a family of 13. She also leads Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, the teaching and coaching branch of her work, which includes her books and is supported by her partner, Billy, and their dedicated team. Welcome, Julie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
This timing is so aligned. The serendipity of you and I both meeting and then the timing with the market is just couldn't be any better. I would like to first share how we came to meet, which was I got an email from, I believe, one of your assistants.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was so excited because this is the first time somebody's reached out to me to be on my podcast. Financial health was on my radar in terms of wanting to bring this to my audience, and especially the way that you frame your entire business. I couldn't have asked for a better alignment between us and our backgrounds. And I do believe in divine happenings. And I truly believe that we were brought together for a reason. As I dug into reading more of your books, and your material is powerful and critical at this time in our world. I would love for you to share more about yourself with the audience.
Absolutely. I always tell people that I didn't come from money, but I learned how to become income fluent as well as asset affluent, which are 2 different types of financial wealth. Many of us have figured out how to generate income, but it's what we do with that income that actually creates our reality. My mom was a teacher, and everyone's always like, you're like your mom. And I'm like, I'm not like my mom. She's a school teacher, but I teach too. I put myself through my undergrad, my graduate work. I went to the University of Illinois and the University of Notre Dame and started building my business at 22 years old. Now, years later, what's the worst thing can happen is that I go back and I eat fried bologna and macaroni and cheese. That is never happening. So I had nothing to lose but jumping off the ledge and starting my own business. I found this mentor very young in my 20s that said, if I were to do it over again, I'd start my own gig, because all these big financial firms were going to get in trouble one day. And then leading up to the 08 and 09 crisis, he was right. Lehman Brothers fell apart, and we had all these other debacles that have happened since then. What I realize is that there's a lot of people in the financial services world that don't do things for the client. They do it for their own business purposes. And that's the tail wagging the dog. This driver for me to help people has really been my motivation. I started to realize my entire industry doesn't take the emotional side of money into account whatsoever. A few years ago, Harvard Business Review came out with a thing called behavioral finance, where you have to take the human heart into account. Everyone in the general public knows they have emotion behind money, but left brain logical finance professionals want to take that out of the equation, but you can't take that away from the human being. I have a mom that helped us develop our emotional infrastructure and how to honor that, be smart in your decisions. So it's that integration between your heart and your head. And I apply that to my process. And now we're sitting here, actually, May of this year will be my 30th year in business. And we're growing, creeping up on $1 billion in assets under management. I've written 3 books. I just started my 4th one. We're helping people at large, and hence I'm doing the podcasts. I've been there, done that. Now it's time to help the millions.
I associate it with Western medicine versus Eastern medicine.
For sure.
So Western medicine, very much in our physical bodies, just treating the symptoms. Eastern medicine, getting to the root of the problem. Both are necessary, but the Eastern side of things, getting to the root cause of what's happening. And so going from the brain to the heart and then bringing that emotion in, this timing of what's happening. The Dow dropped yesterday almost 1,700 points. People are in fear. Fear is thriving with uncertainty, and you are preaching the message of clarity and courage being within our reach. So tell us more about where you come from in this realm.
For sure. If you're freaking out about your money, first and foremost, that tells me that your money is not aligned with you as a person. So what do I mean by that? The subtitle of my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, is Building Wealth from the Inside Out. The reason it is that is because most of us build our financial world from the outside in. Somebody else is telling us this is how we should do it without running it through our own filter and saying, can I sleep at night with this or can I not sleep with this at night? You know, everyone loves the returns. If you think about 2024 numbers, if you were invested in the market, you got double-digit returns. Nobody minds that. But the market average is not double-digit returns. The market average is 6 to 8%, depending on which time slot you look through, this 20 years or that 20 years or this 10 years. And to think that you're going to get 15% in 1 year and not have it pull back the next is unrealistic. We have a lot of people today freaking out about the current administration in the United States. I'm not here to judge what's good or bad, but we do have strong economic indicators right now. When people are freaking out, it's usually not about the money. It's about some fear being triggered inside of us that's actually been wanting to come up and out since you were a child. Many of us don't realize that as humans, something occurs before age 7 that hardwires into our subconscious mind. And that becomes how we react and respond to the world the rest of our lives, unless we start to develop and build the muscles to feel those feelings of fear that locked into our physical bodies before age 7. And why do we do that as humans? We lock it in because we're trying to survive and not die from the processing of whatever that experience was for you. Some people have an extreme experience, and some people, like I had one client who drilled it back to where it was one time when her grandmother smacked her on the hand, and it hardwired into her that she was not enough and not worthy. And she just sucked it up. Mine is an extreme example where I was sexually molested by a Catholic priest who was a family friend when I was 5 years old. You can have a very extreme thing that locked into your brain or something small, but it's still the basis of how you react to the world around you. When you don't build your money based on the inside out, you're not honoring the fact that maybe you're a little bit more conservative by nature and need to have more reserves in the bank to make you feel more grounded so that you're not hijacking your nervous system when things like now happen. And we depend on credit for that these days financially. And that just compounds your fear. That puts the icing on the cake of your fear. Because I always say that we work things out or we act it out through our money, our health, our relationships. And that's why our two bodies work really well together, because you've got the health side and I've got the money side. And we work it out or we act it out in one of those two, if not also relationships. If you're provoked and if you are triggered right now, that means something needs to shift in you. It's not about anything else. There's some catalyst or something that's happening that's trying to get these feelings up and out, and you just need to feel your feelings and not distract yourself with whatever it is you're doing. Maybe it's eating too much or not exercising or taking your money out of the market because you're reacting to what's happening right now instead of sitting with your sound financial strategy. You could be smoking, you could be drinking, you could be doing drugs, you could do whatever. We do all kinds of things to distract ourselves because that little girl or little boy inside of you is trying to not feel that feeling from before age 7.
Reframing this fear, what would you say to the audience in terms of one or two first steps that they could take towards reframing that fear?
Well, the first step that I walk every client through is that I need you to dream the new dream. Because if we focused on the reality, we would keep spinning and we would stay stuck. So I need to decide, what is it that you want to create in your life right now from this point forward? People always say to me, they go, what do you mean financially? And I'm like, I don't care if it's in your financial life, your personal life, your family life, your career life. What's interesting to me is that nobody ever talks about the money first, ever. It's always, this is what I want for my career. This is what I want for my family. This is what I want personally, taking vacations or changing my job or whatever. We have to remember that the money is just the result of aligning with self. If you're not getting promotions at work and pay raises, it's because your heart and soul isn't in it on some level. You authentically are plugging into the world not at 100%. If you're not getting the raises, you're not getting the opportunities, and you're not getting the promotions because you're being called to shift or pivot in some way. And those are the ones going, come on, move, come on, get going. And they're the knocks at the door. And if you don't listen to those knocks, they become cracked over the head with a 2x4. I talk about that in my book, The Emotion Behind Money. Those hits are going to come harder and harder. And we as humans like to avoid those feelings so much that we actually develop crises in our life. We don't need to do that. We don't need to get to the place to avoid feeling those fears. A lot of people don't change their careers even though they know it's not feeding their heart and soul anymore, because they've pigeonholed themselves in a lifestyle and still need to pay their bills. The first step is you got to have that compelling reason for change, and that's your dreams. After you do that, you need to accept the reality you have created, because in that acceptance, it gives you emotional breathing room. You may not be where you want to be financially right now. I want you to make sure that you are looking at the envelopes, not opening those envelopes as the market's moving up, down. Why? Because if you're not looking at them, that means you're avoiding them. And that means you're ignoring authentically who you are. And that's not okay. We need to know how you're feeling. Like you had framed it. The market's down 1,700 points. You know what? That sounds big. But when you look at it, that it's a little over 1%, that's not so big. But we identify with dollars and numbers and not percentages. I always tell people, if you built up $10,000 and the market had a 20% correction, you're like, oh, that hurt. That's not so good. But if you have $1 million and you lost $200,000, it's the exact same 20% correction, but you just have more dollars, and we react to having more dollars than not. That's the second step, is accept that reality of where it's at. Feel those feelings behind it, and then make a logical decision in terms of if you want to shift things or not an emotional one. And the third one is you need to just wake yourself back up. I keep referring to your authentic self. Many of us have negotiated ourselves away for the job, for the family, for whatever reason. Your job's not feeding your heart and soul. A lot of people learned that in the pandemic when they finally had a break and didn't have to commute. All of a sudden they're like, why am I doing this in this rat race? But what's interesting, 5 years later, people have gone right back to it. Pandemic came. It was to shift a lot of people. Some of us did, but a lot of people did not. They went back. We've created that household debt all over again.
To summarize what you're saying, moving from your head to your heart, you said then that 3-step process was identifying the dream, looking at your reality, and then waking up. The thing that came to mind for me as you were talking, and especially when you consider moving from your head to your heart, is that money is energy.
Oh, for sure.
And people, I don't think of it in those terms. You already spoke to this, that this is the aspect you bring to your business that is different from other financial services. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how money is energy, or how that plays into this head to heart and movement through fear?
If you think about it, Einstein proved that E equals MC squared. Everything is energy, including our physical bodies, including our money. And when we understand, like, you cannot manifest financial abundance in your world if you're not at the energetic frequency of money. Just like with your health, diabetes is 52 megahertz. Cancer is 44 megahertz. And when you're processing emotions like frustration, anger, sadness, when you're vibrating in those emotions, you then are vibrating at the vibration and frequency of those diseases. One person has COVID, 3 of them catch it and 7 of them don't, because they're not at the frequency to even contract it. And so when we think about that, the whole world works on energy and frequency, that if you're worried about think about your emotions, because your emotions are energy in motion. So if you're frustrated, if you're sad, if you're angry, like let's just say you're going through a divorce and you're angry and you're sad. All you're going to do is create a divorce process that is frustrating, sad, a lot of the money is going to go out the door to the lawyers because you're not holding the container of abundance because you've been clipped down for so long, which I find so many women to be reality of. They feel like their wings have been clipped, right? Because we give it up for the family. If you're not happy that you're getting your wings back and you're frustrated and scared about not having any money because he's playing games and trying to screw you out of money, then you have a leaky container and your money's going to go out the door to lawyers. But if you always trust and believe that, you know what, I'm not really sure how this is really going to work out, but this is what I want to make sure that this is smooth. My divorce was not easy, but I always held the container that I wanted the highest and best for me, my children, and my ex. And somehow, some way, 8 years later, we're at a place where, okay, we're getting there. Didn't come overnight, but whenever I joined, the frustration and the anger and the sadness, it just kept colliding. And then more money went out the door to lawyers. More money went out to pay for whatever. Money is energy. If you're not being honored and respected at your employer and you're not getting that pay raise, well, then you are being called to hold healthy boundaries for yourself because the energy of money is not flowing to you. And there's a message in that energy. Am I okay with this or am I not okay with this? You might be okay with not getting a pay raise because you have a ton of flexibility in your life to plug into your children's school life and their activities. And that might be okay with you, but if you're not okay with it, then it's about holding healthy boundaries. It's all energy. Money flows. That's why it's called currency. It flows like a river. In the current, do you want it to trickle or do you want it to be like the roaring rapids where there's so much, it's just rocking and rolling and coming in? Absolutely a frequency.
And everything that you're saying too, in terms of that energy, that frequency can be applied to so much in our world, especially right now. I think that's the one thing that I've been trying to maintain for myself and the people around me is with everything going on, the frequency in the vibration is lowering. And if we succumb to that, it's going to compound and spread out because that's how energy works. If we continue to raise the vibration within ourselves, within our families, within our communities, and stay strong in whatever capacity that means, then that's kind of like low vibrations. We're working against it and we're not feeding into it, which is exactly what low vibrations want for us to do.
Can I give a really great example here?
Yes.
I have a client. She's a professional. She's actually an OBGYN and she's made a great career of herself. She's in her 50s now and she is really not in alignment at all with the current administration in the United States. And to the point that it's almost making her physically sick. And going back to the whole concept of building wealth from the inside out. And she works at a university and the grants might be cut off, worried about all this new things coming in. I know a lot of people are talking about the tariffs. What does it mean with Canada and Mexico? I drilled her back inside and said, okay, you've been telling me for a long time that you needed a shift from your career. Well, maybe this is the opportunity. So I got her to first take advantage of her employer has a sabbatical. So she decided to take a 6-month sabbatical to open up the energy, just to take a breathing room and space. She didn't know exactly what she was going to be doing. But then what started to develop after she decided she needed to unplug from the craziness and get her emotions more stabilized and higher as opposed to all this sadness and anger and frustration. She lives in a specific reality that she was more like her dad. Dad passed a few years ago. Mom's in a nursing home with dementia, doesn't even recognize her. And she's not in touch with a sister because her sister's not mentally healthy. The only family she has is in Italy. I said, you always talk about that you love that side of your heritage. Why don't you just take some of your sabbatical and go there? She decided to spend 5 out of the 6 months with her family in Italy. Since then, she's been there. She's like, Jewel, I've decided I'm going to change the kind of medicine that I go into. She goes, I am so interested in Ayurveda and functional medicine. She's decided to become a culinary medical doctor, meaning teaching food is medicine.
Yes.
And she's unplugging from the OBGYN and plugging into the medical. So all this medical knowledge that she understands about the physical body, she's now going to integrate it. And so she pivoted from frustration, anger, and sadness to this place of, oh my God, this really feeds my heart and soul, even though I'm in my early 50s. And I still have 10 to 15 more years to work. I'm going to do it in something that makes me giggle, makes me happy, regardless. I don't know if she's going to wind up staying in Italy long term. We'll see as it unfolds. But all I know is she went and found her happiness. Yes. She found her giggle. And she's found the courage from within to actually jump off the ledge to the next adventure. Now, she's not exactly sure how she's going to handle her current employer that she's on a sabbatical with and how that transitions. But what I'm telling you is if you follow your giggle and you shift your energetic vibration and frequency away from the lower vibrations, all that clarity starts to open up and you start to see the path, no different than how our two paths crossed. I was just finding my giggle, working with a firm to go I've said, find me people like this and I want to talk to their audiences. And they found you because that makes me giggle. And then our giggles come together and then it's all expansion.
We do align so much. I appreciate that story. And I think that it's also important to note that you're Ayurvedic trained also. So just to mention to the audience that Ayurveda is a Hindu system of medicines based on body types and bringing in particular spices and foods that work with that person to help heal them. I really hope that maybe she'll consider coming back to the US because I know we need more people like that to help us through that process. This part of our conversation related to fear and emotions, acknowledging the fear and beginning to shift the emotions that are tied to it. And so that brings us to a little bit more about the emotions and how we can maybe make them not so much as obstacles, but as information and fuel for that transformation. In your book, The 4 Spiritual Laws of Money, fantastic book, available on Audible for those of my audience that like to listen to their books. The second law is start with your heart. We've touched on this a little bit already, but take us down this path a little bit more about emotions and how they're deeply connected to our subconscious beliefs and how that can get us stuck in that scarcity and self-doubt and survival mode.
So one of the things that I want to start with is the fact that there's an organization called heartmath.org, and they measure how the magnetic force of the human heart. And they realized there's these satellites that measure the magnetic force of the earth. And back on 9/11, they were like, why is the readings 4.1 times its normal reading? And then they looked at whenever there are other peaks. And that's when they realized that the human heart is globally, every human on the planet could feel for what was going on in New York City on 9/11. And what they realized is that the power of the human heart, the magnetic force goes for over 8 miles. So if we're not making our financial decisions or our health decisions or our relationship decisions in alignment with our heart, you can tell me to go on a diet, but if it doesn't align with my heart, it is not going to work. Same thing with your money decisions or job decisions, because you're not going to attract and pull into you because your heart are where your emotions, you're feeling your way through the process instead of thinking your way through the process. One of my mentors always said, start with your heart and then add your smarts. If you're getting the strongest magnet on the planet to activate, and then you do the smart tactical things to support that, that is a process called coherence. And when you're in coherence, you can manifest and have quantum leaps in your life to exactly what you want to create. And who would have thought that it was our emotions that actually could do that? It can either slam the door or open it all up. The challenge is that most of us, because of trauma or rejection that happened before age 7, tend to shut and close our heart down to survive. And then that keeps us in scarcity and survival mode as opposed to thriving in abundance. We're living at a time where we're unpacking heart-based consciousness. How do you walk around the earth and be in your daily life with an open, vulnerable heart while things are coming at you and you're breathing your way through it to keep that magnet open? We are toddlers at this as a culture. We are learning how to do this, and it's more in alignment with the divine feminine way. Every human on the planet, male or female, has divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy. And the heart is the feminine, where the masculine is the mind. We need both, but you got to make sure you have the right one driving the engine.
One more synchronicity that's happening here is I was at the gym this morning with my headphones on listening to a podcast. I was actually listening to Joe Dispenza, which I know you're a fan of. His talk was about heart-centered focus versus survival and the heart-brain connection and the science behind our brainwave patterns under stress, that meditation broadens our awareness. When it opens up, we're more open to retelling the story in a different way.
Correct.
I'm a big fan of heart math too. I know some people who are certified in that. It's fascinating research and science. So yeah, all of that lands in terms of the heart and the head connection there. Are there particular things that would help us specifically start to manage our emotions?
Yeah, let's take it to practical financial things. When people come to my wealth management firm, JMC Wealth here in Chicago, I have them fill out 2 risk questionnaires. One measures your left brain logical, and that may tell you that, if you're in your 40s, you're still growth mode, you should have more stocks or stock mutual funds or ETFs in your portfolio. Then we have you do a risk tolerance that measures your right brain, which is your emotional brain, and it says you're ultra conservative. So you inside of your own brain, you have, my highly educated brain saying, oh my God, I'm growth mode, I should be more stocks. Then your emotional brain going, wow, this is not okay. You're emotionally turbulent when things are like they are in the economy as of the recording of our podcast today. What I've come to learn is that to harness those emotions, you need to take into account both. You need to not ignore that emotional side, because if you do, you will create financial leaky containers that end in job loss or having to take out debt to fix things or divorce. So in that honoring of who you are, both in your right brain and left brain, and if you are married or in partnership and you share your household money with somebody, they have 2 parts of their brain too. And many times we don't agree with the other person's brain, but I'm telling you this, you have to honor all 4 parts of the collective brain. You need both right brains and both left brains, because if you don't, you're going to create leaking containers. One of the best things that you can do is saying, okay, in a short-term bucket, I talk about money being short-term, mid-term, and long-term. So short-term is your emergency reserves. It's that 3 to 6 months money that if you had to give yourself a paycheck, do you have a savings account set up to just pay you that, $5,000, $6,000, $2,000, whatever you need per month to make sure that your household still runs the way that it is? Most people use debt for that. They don't have that money built up in a savings account. And that's the slippery slope, which then triggers all the emotional trauma response and the reactivity response, which is scarcity and survival mode, as opposed to thriving. Because the whole key here on an emotional level is to keep your nervous system in a state of neutrality and not hijacked by your emotions. How much you keep in a savings account from an emergency reserve perspective, people will say to me, well, I don't have any money to build into a midterm or a cash account. And I go, yes, you do. Because the next pay raise you get, the next tax return you get, the next debt that you pay off, let's say the car loan. I always tell people, we know we're going to buy another car. So when you're done making that car payment to a third party, please open up a savings account. Online, there's tons of them. You can do Capital One, American Express, Discover, Barclays. There's lots of online bank accounts that today pay over 3.5% interest. Link it to your checking account. Instead of paying off Toyota or Honda every month, pay that savings account you're going to call your new car fund. And you don't combine it with anything. And that's how you switch from playing financial defense to playing financial offense, which when you do this, it harnesses your emotions. It keeps you in a state of neutrality. So the next time you need a car, you're like, for 3 years, I was able to put that $450 a month into a savings account. Now I have X amount of dollars. Do I want to buy a car with the dollars that I have so I can stay playing offense? Or do I want to use it as a down payment and have a payment again? And the same is true with emergency reserves. When you get that next pay raise, let's say you get a 3% pay raise, take 1% of that, even if it's only $25 a month, and start having that every paycheck, $25 goes into that account, and you call it emergency money. I had somebody actually, because they wouldn't stop touching their savings account, I had them call it, I lost my job fund, so that they actually didn't touch it unless they lost their job, because it's bringing that awareness to the forefront of that goal, of that dream, honoring who you are because you're more conservative by nature. And let's build that 3 to 6 months and not touch it, because that's called self-love and self-care.
Yeah.
And the problem is we have so many people who don't love themselves and they don't hold healthy financial boundaries because we're on this rat race. We're on this treadmill, and the powers that be want to keep control of you, and they do that by our debt system, because you have to wake up every day and pay for all of yesterday's choices, which keeps you in an emotional spinning cycle instead of you being in a place of financial empowerment.
As you were talking about that and putting that little bit of money aside, I started to think about our society. We also have evolved into the society where the minute that our car loan is up, we want to go get a new car right away.
Right. It's you trying to satisfy emotions to create happiness by spending again and thinking that something outside of yourself is actually going to make you happy. It will never make you happy. which is why in my second book, Awaken Your Wealth, I talk about people who are rich but empty. Because when you negotiate yourself away and you think these things outside of yourself are going to make you happy, you then get enough money to actually not have to work. And you're going, this is not what I expected it to be, because they didn't build it based on their personal happiness. They built it on something that can crumble pretty quickly. People say, what's a smart financial thing for me to do? And I'm like, well, which one makes you giggle more? And they're like, what? We don't even think that way. Which one makes you giggle more? It's in alignment with your heart, built on who you are. And I don't care if you have to justify it to anybody. It means something to you.
Yeah. And I like the way you say what makes you giggle, because I try to frame it as what brings you joy. And if you ask anybody, what brings you joy? It's hard to come up with,
because we're not wired. After my divorce, the gentleman who I've been dating for the last 7 years, we got in the car and he goes, okay, we're all going to sit here until your mother decides, because I've got 4 kids, he's got 2. And so all 6 kids are in the car, and he goes, we're not going to go anywhere until she decides where she wants to go to dinner. Because I instantly go in my brain going, well, Bridget won't eat here, and Timmy won't do this, and Michael won't do this, and Emily doesn't like this. I instantly go to what's going to create happiness for the entire family, as opposed to like, where do I really want to eat? And literally they were all saying, what? They all tried to give their influence. He goes, nope, we're sitting there until mom, because her heart matters too. And it was funny. The minute I chose where I wanted to eat that night, of course, somebody in the car, a couple of them were like, oh, I don't like that there. And it's like, oh, but that's how important we all are. We don't understand how much we've negotiated our hearts away and our joy and our giggles, because we let these influences happen, whether it's friends, family, kids, employers, coworkers. Mm-hmm. We let everything influence us, as opposed to going, put it through my filter. Am I okay with this? Am I not okay with this? And why am I okay with this or not okay with this? And then just find what makes you happy. And if you always choose what makes you happy, the things that are meant for you will stick with you, and the people and the things that are not will fall away. And it is absolutely okay that they fall away, because they're not in alignment in your happiness.
Yes. Amen. I want to go to your church. Where are you preaching? That segues perfectly into the third part we wanted to touch on today, which is you are powerful. You are the answer. There's a lot of external validation, conditioning, disempowerment happening, bringing that energetic alignment back to ourselves. And exactly what you were saying, following your bliss, following your joy, following your giggle.
Right.
And begin to make powerful choices from that place.
It is so empowering. And the first time you do it, when you choose something that you know is going to upset the apple cart with other people, you're kind of like looking over your shoulders and you're like, I remember the first time I chose that with my ex-husband, I remember ducking and covering because I knew it was not going to be something that makes him happy. And I just sat there and felt my emotions, which was just that little girl who was scared from a person of authority trying to put me back in my place. And all it was honoring myself. Mm-hmm. Feeling those emotions when other people project onto you, because they'd like you to stay the way you were. They want you to keep showing up for them the way you show up for them. They don't want you to change. They don't want you to shift, because it's about their needs getting met and not your own.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you are the most important thing. And I'm not saying being selfish. I'm just saying take yourself along for the ride. Because when we step into our lives, this place of empowerment, and we choose, and I don't even care if you don't even know what choice to make, then don't make a choice. Just stay neutral. Be like, I'm not really sure. Like, there was a while there that I thought I was building a life and a future with these 4 kids, and it was coming down. And I'm like going, there are days that all I could do was just stay in my house, and I would take the kids to the beach because we lived on the lakefront in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know the next right step. All I knew was I loved the beach and I loved hanging out with my kids. And while the rest of everything was falling apart and falling away, I was just allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
And I was just going to find something in that moment that made me happy. That's it.
Yeah.
Because you can emerge from that. You can emerge your authentic self if you're smoking, drinking, overeating, or not eating, or doing all the things that distract us from being ourselves.
Yes. It's a mask. It's a cover.
Right.
Yeah. And you and I are about 4 years apart in age. So we're very much in that same phase of life, things happening, all the fun of middle age. And this is where I really honed in my business, bringing the awareness back to women in this time frame in our lives. Kids are launching. we all of a sudden don't know what to do with ourselves. We have had that focus externally for so many years that all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I can do something that brings me joy, brings me happiness.
I've had people redefine themselves even in their 60s, 70s.
It's never too late. And I think this goes back to the premise behind this podcast of trusting our wise self, our inner wisdom. But I think also sometimes people just need to come back to understanding what their intuition is and how to trust themselves. And that's where these two ideas intersect, of bringing that bliss and joy and reconnecting to what that is for people, and then trusting their intuition and internal wisdom over the external noise.
And that's where I want people to realize that it doesn't happen overnight. Listening to your intuition is like building a muscle, because you're building the trust muscle. You are so powerful that you have the answers within, but you've ignored your inner self, your intuition. So you have to start building the trust muscle, going, okay, my intuition's telling me this, but my logic's telling me this. For example, I moved last year to a suburb. Now, the story I could tell everybody is that I moved where my ex-husband's girlfriend lived, which is true. People are like, what are you doing? But my intuition was so strong that something's going to shift and change. This was about me starting my life with my current partner in combining households with our 6 kids, despite the fact that, yes, the way to make it work with my past was moving into a community where my ex-husband's girlfriend lived, because it worked. We found a place that we liked to live in, and I was following my intuition all along the way. And the things that have unpacked since we've been here, I couldn't even have thought that those were the things that were going to unpack. I said, we don't know how it actually shows up and how do I block and tackle and get it done. But you're trusting your intuition, and then the things show up. Like, you didn't know that I was going to come on your podcast when you started creating your podcast with somebody that was so aligned. We can't plan those things. Right. We can intend that that's what we want to attract to ourselves. But that synchronicity, or even the synchronicity of my ex being on Bumble one day and meeting this woman in this suburb, I just kept praying for an answer. Like, I couldn't keep doing it the way I was doing it with my ex. And I tell her all the time that she is an answer to my prayers. She's amazing to my children, shipped so many things with my ex. And I'm like going, okay, this is the expansion. This is where it's at. But I had to follow my intuition. And I've had so many examples of following my intuition that were spot on, that I built that muscle, that this was a big jump. And all I kept hearing was, one more big jump, one more big jump. Just trust and believe. And I'm now living it, and I can see how it's all coming together.
Yeah.
And it's a trust muscle. You got to build it.
Yes, absolutely. The work that you've done on yourself and being able to expand and open that window of energy, of love, of compassion. You opened yourself up to, we can co-create a reality for our children that is loving, respectful. And you did this, but you also had to be open to that, because if you were shut 100%. Off from it, it was not going to expand and grow a beautiful thing for your families. So, I really appreciate that about you, because I think there's so much of the rule versus the exception. I wish those situations were the rule versus the exception. I hope our world is moving more towards that, of the openness and the collaboration.
The trust muscle.
Yes.
Trust that they are moving in that direction, because we just have to hold the light. When lower vibrations try to pull us out of our light, that holds the container for more people. Let me give you an example. When I got divorced, one of my spiritual teachers said to me, thank you for doing what you did. And I'm like, what? Thank me for getting divorced? He goes, no. So now people who are in a narcissistic marriage and are afraid of leaving the narcissist, because they'll experience the narcissist storm of getting attacked mentally, emotionally, and physically, that you just made it easier, because you weakened the energetic grid that every narcissist has on people who are staying in those marriages. So you made it easier for other people to rise up into it. And what's interesting is that in the years following, I got so many referrals to women who were trying to get out, and I could show them exactly how to get out of a marriage narcissist. Mm-hmm. Super easy. Just trust that when we're holding the container, like I held the container for more women to follow, people I didn't even know, because we're all energetically connected.
Yes. And while today our talk is about finances, think of how many layers we've covered here in this conversation and how it is all intertwined, interconnected, and energetic. Yep. And again, you're referencing this, building this muscle, and that's part of your first law and the spiritual laws of money, building the manifest muscle.
Yes.
Do you have one or two steps to helping the audience start that process? How do I build my manifest muscle, Julie?
Well, first of all, you have to love yourself and do the most self-loving and self-caring things. So from a practical perspective, if you don't have that emergency reserve in place to become your own bank, when things go awry, open it up. And I don't care if you're putting $5 a month into it. It's about the fact that you're cracking it open and you're choosing to become financially empowered, right? Like do something tactical to be able to start to build that muscle, to build that trust muscle. And love yourself enough. And you can certainly go to my website, juliemurphy.com, and I have all kinds of worksheets that you can download. But some of those worksheets or in my workbooks, sit down and dream the new dream. Have a session with yourself and just say, what is it that I want? What do I want financially? What do I want in my personal life? What do I want in my family life? Those questions are built into any of my books, or I have worksheets on my website. The third thing I would suggest is be around people that help you create the new world. If you have a bunch of girlfriends and you always talk about a credit card debt, start to hang out with people who are financially abundant, not those that are struggling with their credit card debt. Like, be mindful of the company you keep, because you are the company you keep. I'm not saying get rid of your friends, but what I'm saying is that, you know, I realized in 08 and 09 that when General Motors declared bankruptcy, my clients who worked for General Motors were just as fiscally dysfunctional, cash flow wise, as the company they worked for that declared bankruptcy and got bailed out by the federal government. You're only as strong as the company that you're keeping, because you're energetically connected to them, because you're like them in some way, some shape. They're just reflecting back to you who you are. So be mindful of the company you keep. All those things will help you build the muscle.
Absolutely. So let's bring this all together. While we had this elaborate conversation that went into many different areas and layers, really the three main areas that we were talking about today is fear is a message, not a master. That emotions are your internal compass, and that you are the key to your transformation. Is there anything else that you feel is important that we haven't talked about?
I just know that if you realized how powerful you actually are, you would not put up with 90% of the stuff you put up with in your life. And so it's time to start self-loving and self-caring for yourself and doing those things every day so that you can get back to your place of empowerment. You matter that much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that message today, Julie. How can my audience find you?
By all means, you can go to juliemurphy.com. Like I said, I have online courses, social media, YouTube, Awaken with Julie is my Instagram. I have an author Facebook page under my name as well. Wherever you are financially, I have some kind of tool or some kind of thing. I have all kinds of free stuff out there. I also have a 6-week course where you get me twice a week in helping you through all the educational lessons and videos and homework assignments. If you have a calling to either get assistance in your health, get a hold of Sarah. If it's your wealth, it's me, and it might be a combo of the two.
Absolutely. They definitely feed into each other. Very much wanted to bring this conversation to the audience about financial health, and you demonstrated it perfectly, exactly how I was hoping that the audience would get to experience this, in terms of it being an energetic process, and that there's so many aspects to it that we can feel empowered. So thank you again, Julie, for being here today. So grateful for your wisdom. And I will make sure that all these resources are available to the audience. I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you, Sarah.
Julie reminded us that true wealth begins within And the moment you stop waiting for permission, you start living with intention. If this episode sparked something in you, share it with a friend, journal your biggest takeaway, and start building that manifesting muscle because your wise self is ready. And as always, please subscribe, leave a review, and let's keep this ripple going.